I'm Sarah Mitchell, 29, and I just discovered that the $5,200 I gave my parents for my dad's medical bills actually funded a family cruise, one I wasn't invited to. As I scroll through the Facebook photos of my parents, siblings, and even cousins enjoying the Caribbean sun, I realize that the family I've sacrificed everything for has been laughing behind my back all along. My hands shake as I reach for my phone, ready to make the call that will change our family dynamic forever. Hey there, amazing viewers. Before we dive deeper into this family betrayal story, I'd love to know where you're watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below. And if you enjoy real-life drama and justice-served moments, hit that like button and subscribe to join our storytelling community. Now let's get back to how my own family stabbed me in the back and how karma eventually came knocking on their door. Growing up in the Mitchell family, I was always the responsible one. Being the oldest of 3 children in our middle-class suburban home outside of Chicago, I learned early on that family meant sacrifice. My parents, Robert and Diane, weren't terrible people, at least that's what I always told myself. Dad worked as a mid-level manager at an insurance company while Mom taught 3rd grade at the local elementary school. We were comfortable, but there was always an undercurrent of financial anxiety that permeated our household. My sister Amanda, now 27, was the golden child, beautiful, charming, and always getting what she wanted with minimal effort. My brother Tyler, 24, was the baby of the family who could do no wrong. And then there was me, reliable, hardworking Sarah, who paid her own way through college and landed a solid job as a marketing specialist at a healthcare company. The dynamics in our family always followed the same pattern. When Amanda needed money for her dance competitions or Tyler wanted the latest gaming system, my parents found a way to make it happen. When I needed new glasses or help with college textbooks, I was taught the valuable lesson of financial independence. "You're so responsible, Sarah," Mom would say with a smile that never quite reached her eyes. "You don't need our help like the others do." And like a fool, I believed that was a compliment. By the time I turned 25, I had managed to save a modest emergency fund despite paying off student loans and supporting myself entirely. I lived in a small but comfortable apartment about 30 minutes from my parents' home and visited them for Sunday dinners regularly. Despite the uneven treatment I received compared to my siblings, I maintained close ties with my family. Blood is thicker than water, right? That's what they always told me. Then came the phone call that would set this whole nightmare in motion. It was a rainy Tuesday evening in April when my dad called me, his voice uncharacteristically subdued. "Sarah, honey, I hate to ask this, but I'm in a bit of a situation," he said, clearing his throat uncomfortably. "I've been having some health issues, nothing too serious," he quickly added when I gasped in concern, "but the insurance isn't covering all the treatments." My heart raced as I gripped the phone tighter. "What kind of health issues, Dad? Why haven't you told me before now?" There was a pause on the other end of the line. "Just some tests and procedures for my heart. The doctor says it's probably nothing, but we need to be sure. Your mother, and I don't want to worry Amanda and Tyler, you know how emotional they get. We thought you could handle it better." The familiar pang of being the strong one hit me, but I pushed it aside. My dad's health was at stake. "How much do you need?" I asked without hesitation. Another pause. "About $5,200 would cover everything." "I hate to ask, sweetie, but we've exhausted our savings with some house repairs last month." That was nearly all of my emergency fund, money I'd been saving for years. But what was money compared to my father's health? "I'll transfer it tomorrow morning," I promised. The relief in his voice was palpable. "You're an angel, Sarah. We'll pay you back as soon as we can." I didn't even consider the possibility that I wouldn't get the money back. This was family after all. And more importantly, this was my dad's health we were talking about. As I hung up the phone, I felt a strange mix of worry for my father and pride that I could be the one to help in this crisis. Little did I know that this act of generosity would open my eyes to a family dynamic far more twisted than I had ever imagined. The next morning, I transferred $5,200 to my parents' account without a second thought. When I called to confirm they'd received it, Mom answered with effusive gratitude. "We're so blessed to have you, Sarah. You've always been our rock." The warm glow of her approval, something I'd sought my entire life, washed over me. For the next 2 months, I made a point to call more frequently, asking subtle questions about Dad's appointments and how he was feeling. The answers were always vague but reassuring. The doctors are pleased with his progress, or we're just taking it one day at a time. I offered to accompany them to appointments, but they always had an excuse ready. The appointment times were changed, or it was just a quick checkup not worth my taking time off work. Looking back, I should have seen the red flags. But when it comes to family, we often see what we want to see, not what's actually there. The truth came crashing down on a perfectly ordinary Thursday afternoon in early July. I was mindlessly scrolling through my Facebook feed during my lunch break when I saw it, a photo posted just 20 minutes earlier by my cousin Rachel. The caption read, "Best family vacation ever. Caribbean cruise day 3 with the Mitchells. #FamilyTime, #cruise life." The photo showed my parents, Amanda, Tyler, my 2 cousins, and my aunt and uncle, all grinning widely on the deck of a cruise ship, tropical drinks in hand. My dad, supposedly dealing with heart issues requiring expensive medical treatment, looked the picture of health as he flexed one arm jokingly for the camera. I stared at my phone screen in disbelief, my sandwich forgotten on my desk. This had to be an old photo, right? But the date stamp and Rachel's caption made it clear this was happening now. My family was on a Caribbean cruise while I thought my father was recovering from heart procedures. With shaking hands, I called my mother's cell phone. It went straight to voicemail. Same with my dad's phone, Amanda's, and Tyler's. I then tried Rachel, who picked up on the 3rd ring, the sounds of music and laughter in the background. "Hey, Sarah," she said cheerfully. "What's up?" "Rachel, are you on a cruise right now?" I asked, my voice barely controlled. "Yeah. Didn't your parents tell you? They surprised everyone with this amazing 7-day Caribbean cruise. We're having the best time. The food is incredible and—" "Everyone," I interrupted. "Who exactly is there?" "Oh, your parents, Amanda and her boyfriend, Tyler, me and my brother and my parents. It was such an amazing surprise when Uncle Robert called last month to invite us." Last month. While I was worrying about my father's non-existent heart condition, he was booking a luxury cruise for the entire family, except me. "Rachel," I said slowly, "did my parents happen to mention where they got the money for this cruise?" There was an awkward pause. "I think Uncle Robert mentioned something about a bonus at work." "Look, Sarah, I assumed you couldn't come because of work or something. They didn't say you weren't invited." But I had stopped listening. A bonus at work. The same amount as my loan for his medical bills. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. After hanging up with Rachel, I sat frozen at my desk, unable to process the magnitude of the betrayal. My own parents had lied to me, taken my hard-earned money, and used it to treat everyone in the family except me to a luxury vacation. The family photos kept appearing on social media throughout the day, Amanda parasailing, Tyler at the ship's casino, Mom and Dad posing in formal wear for the captain's dinner. Each new image was like a knife twisting in my gut. Not only had they excluded me, but they had the audacity to post these photos where I could see them. Did they think I wouldn't notice? Or worse, did they simply not care if I found out? That evening, I drove to my parents' empty house, using the spare key they'd given me years ago. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, perhaps confirmation that this wasn't some elaborate misunderstanding. In their home office, I found the cruise documents printed out and neatly filed. 7 passengers, total cost just over $10,000. My $5,200 had paid for more than half of their family vacation, a vacation I wasn't even told about. Next to the cruise documents was a folder labeled Sarah. Inside, I found years of birthday cards I'd sent them, bank statements showing every financial gift I'd ever given, and a handwritten list titled Sarah's Loans, with amounts and dates meticulously recorded. There was no mention of repayment plans. At the bottom of the list, circled in red pen, $5,200. Dad's medical bills, April 15th. The quotation marks around medical bills and the smiley face drawn next to it made my stomach turn. This wasn't just opportunistic deception. They had planned to manipulate me all along. As I stood in their office, surrounded by evidence of their systematic exploitation of my generosity, something inside me broke. The carefully constructed image I had of my family, dysfunctional but ultimately loving, shattered completely. In its place stood an ugly truth. I wasn't the dutiful daughter. I was the family ATM. I took photos of everything I found as evidence, then carefully replaced the documents exactly as I'd found them. Before leaving, I removed my spare key from my keyring and left it on their kitchen counter, a small but symbolic gesture of the boundary I was about to establish. That night, alone in my apartment, I cried until there were no tears left. Then I began to plan. The old Sarah would have confronted them emotionally, accepted a half-hearted apology, and eventually forgiven them because that's what family does. But this new Sarah, with her eyes finally open to the truth, was ready to take a different approach entirely. For the next 5 days, while my family enjoyed their Caribbean cruise, I methodically documented every penny I had given them over the years. Birthday gifts, Christmas presents, loans that were never repaid, groceries I'd bought during visits, and finally, the $5,200 for my father's fictitious medical bills. The total made me physically ill, nearly $15,000 over the past decade. Money I could have used for a house down payment or to further my own career. I also gathered evidence of the countless times I had been excluded from family events or expected to contribute more than my siblings. Text messages, emails, social media posts, all painting a clear picture of a family dynamic that had exploited my generosity and love for years. When their cruise ship docked back in Miami, I sent a single text to the family group chat, "I know about the cruise. We need to talk when you get home." Then I waited. The first response came from my mother. "Sarah, honey, it's not what you think. We were going to surprise you with your own trip later." My father texted next, "Let's discuss this as a family. No need to get upset before you hear our side." Amanda and Tyler remained conspicuously silent. I didn't respond to any of them. Words were cheap, and I'd heard enough empty promises to last a lifetime. Instead, I waited until they were back home, then drove to their house on Sunday afternoon, the time when we would normally have our family dinner. When I arrived, they were all there, my parents looking tanned but nervous, Amanda examining her manicured nails with feigned disinterest, and Tyler staring at his phone. The tension in the air was palpable as I sat down at the dining room table and placed a folder in front of me. "How was the cruise?" I asked, my voice steady despite the anger and hurt churning inside me. My mother attempted a smile. "Sarah, we can explain." "Let me save you the effort," I interrupted, opening the folder. "Dad, you never had heart issues. There were no medical bills. You took my $5,200, money I worked hard for, and used it to take everyone in this family, plus our extended family, on a luxury cruise. A cruise I wasn't invited to or even told about." My father's face flushed. "Now, Sarah, it wasn't like that. We were going to pay you back. And we were planning to take you on a trip for your 30th birthday next year." "With whose money?" I asked sharply. "Mine again?" "Because I found your little folder, Dad. The one where you've been tracking every cent I've given this family over the years. The one with medical bills in quotation marks, with a smiley face next to it." The color drained from his face. My mother gasped softly. "You went through our personal files?" my father asked, his embarrassment quickly shifting to indignation. "Yes, I did. And I'm glad I did, because now I have proof that this wasn't a one-time lapse in judgment. This is a pattern. You've been using me as your personal piggy bank for years." Amanda finally looked up. "Don't you think you're being a little dramatic, Sarah? It's just money. Family is supposed to help each other." I turned to her, feeling a cold calm settle over me. "Yes, family is supposed to help each other. So where were you when I needed help with my student loans? Where were any of you when my car broke down last year and I had to take the bus for 2 months to save for repairs? The help in this family only seems to flow in one direction, from me to all of you." My mother's eyes filled with tears. "We never meant to hurt you, Sarah. You've always been so capable, so independent. We didn't think you needed us the way the younger ones did." "No," I said quietly. "You just knew I was easier to exploit because I believed in this family. I believed we took care of each other. But that was a lie, wasn't it? The silence that followed was confirmation enough. "I want my money back," I said, sliding a piece of paper across the table. "All of it. I've calculated everything I've loaned this family over the past 10 years. $14,876 in total. I expect to be repaid in full." My father scoffed. "That's ridiculous. Those were gifts, not loans. And we can't possibly pay back that much all at once." "Then we can set up a payment plan," I replied calmly. "Or I can take this to small claims court. I have documentation for everything, including text messages where you promised to pay me back for the medical bills." "You would sue your own family?" my father asked incredulously. "You would steal from your own daughter," I countered. The room fell silent again. "And just so we're clear," I continued, "this isn't just about the money. It's about the lies, the manipulation, and the complete disregard for me as a member of this family." Do you have any idea how it felt to see those photos pop up on social media? To realize that not only had you lied to get money from me, but you didn't even have the decency to keep your betrayal private. Tyler finally spoke up. "We didn't know about the money, Sarah. Mom and Dad just said they were treating us to a family vacation. If we'd known." "You would have what?" I interrupted. "Refused to go? Insisted I be included?" "Somehow I doubt that, Tyler. None of you even questioned why I wasn't there." "Because in this family, excluding Sarah is just business as usual." "That's not fair," Amanda protested weakly. "No, what's not fair is being treated like an outsider by my own family for 29 years. What's not fair is being expected to give and give while receiving nothing in return, not even basic honesty." I stood up, gathering my folder. "You have 2 weeks to figure out how you're going to start repaying me. After that, I'll be filing in small claims court. And until I see some genuine remorse and change, don't expect me at Sunday dinners anymore." As I walked toward the door, my mother rushed after me. "Sarah, please don't do this. We can work this out as a family." I turned to face her one last time. "That's just it, Mom. We're not a family. A family doesn't do what you did to me. A family stands together. They don't leave one person behind while they go on vacation with her money. So no, we can't work this out as a family because you've proven that when it comes to me, family loyalty means nothing." With those words, I walked out, ignoring their calls behind me. As I drove away from the house I'd grown up in, I felt a strange mix of devastation and liberation. The family I thought I had was gone, or perhaps had never existed in the first place. But in its place was a chance for something new, a life where I valued myself enough not to be used by the people who should have loved me the most. The weeks following my confrontation with my family were some of the loneliest I've ever experienced. The Sunday dinner table where I had faithfully appeared for years now had an empty chair, and the family group chat fell silent. I had expected anger, perhaps even remorse, but what I received instead was something far more painful, a wall of silence. As the first deadline for repayment approached, I received a check in the mail from my parents for $500, a pittance compared to what they owed me, but accompanied by a letter from my father explaining that it was all they could afford right now. The letter was full of subtle guilt trips and veiled accusations about how I had torn the family apart over a simple misunderstanding. Not once did it contain a genuine apology for what they had done. The most difficult part wasn't the financial betrayal, it was the realization that, when faced with their own wrongdoing, my family chose to paint me as the villain rather than accept responsibility. In their narrative, I was the unreasonable one, the daughter who had abandoned her family over money. They conveniently forgot that they were the ones who had lied, manipulated, and excluded me in the first place. Amanda called me a week after the confrontation, not to apologize but to mediate. "Mom and Dad are devastated, Sarah," she said, her voice dripping with condescension. "Can't you just let this go? It's not like they killed someone. They just wanted to take us on a nice family vacation." With my money, I reminded her. Money they obtained by lying about Dad having a heart condition. And why wasn't I included in this family vacation? She sighed as if explaining something to a child. "You know how you are, Sarah. You're always working, always so serious. They probably thought you wouldn't want to come anyway. Did they ask me? Did they even give me the choice?" "That's not the point." "That is exactly the point, Amanda. They didn't ask because they never intended to include me. They saw me as a source of funding, not as part of the family. The call ended with Amanda telling me I needed to get over myself and that my pride was destroying our family. Similar conversations played out with Tyler and even my aunt, all variations on the same theme. I was overreacting, being selfish, putting money before family. No one seemed to grasp, or perhaps they simply refused to acknowledge, the profound betrayal I had experienced. At work, I found it increasingly difficult to concentrate. My performance began to slip, and my manager called me in for a meeting to discuss my recent lack of focus. I couldn't bring myself to explain that my entire family had betrayed me, so I simply promised to do better. But the constant stress and emotional turmoil took their toll. I started having trouble sleeping, lost my appetite, and found myself crying at random moments during the day. The isolation was crushing. Friends tried to understand, but most offered platitudes: family is complicated, or they're still your parents, you know. Some suggested that perhaps I was overreacting, that families sometimes make mistakes. These responses only deepened my sense of being fundamentally alone in my pain. One rainy evening, about a month after the confrontation, I found myself sitting alone in my apartment, staring at old family photos I hadn't been able to bring myself to put away. There we were at Amanda's college graduation, all smiles and seeming solidarity. There was Christmas morning 3 years ago, everyone in matching pajamas opening gifts. In every photo, I stood slightly apart from the others, always the one taking care of details, always the responsible one ensuring everything ran smoothly. Had I ever truly belonged? Or had I always been the outsider, useful for what I could provide but never fully embraced as one of them? The question haunted me as I packed the photos away in a box and shoved it to the back of my closet. The financial impact of losing $5,200 began to manifest in practical ways. I had to postpone plans to replace my aging car and take on extra freelance work to rebuild my emergency fund. Each sacrifice was a tangible reminder of what my family had stolen from me, not just money, but security, trust, and peace of mind. When the 2-week deadline passed and I had received only the token $500 payment, I faced a difficult decision. Should I follow through on my threat to take legal action? The thought of sitting in a courtroom across from my parents, airing our family's dirty laundry in public, made me physically ill. Yet allowing them to escape consequences seemed equally unthinkable. After consulting with a lawyer, I decided to send a formal demand letter, a final warning before court proceedings would begin. The letter detailed the loan, the misrepresentation, and the agreed-upon repayment that had not materialized. It was cold, legal, and impersonal, everything my relationship with my family had become. 3 days after sending the letter, my phone rang with my father's number. My heart pounded as I answered. "Hello," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "Sarah." My father's voice was tight with anger. "We received your letter. And? Do you really want to do this? Drag your family into court over money? What would Grandma Mitchell say if she were alive to see this?" The manipulation was so transparent it almost made me laugh. "I think Grandma would be appalled at how you've treated me, Dad. And yes, I'm prepared to go to court if necessary. This isn't just about money, it's about respect." He was silent for a moment. "We can pay you $1,000 a month until it's paid off. But if we do this, Sarah, you need to understand something. Our relationship will never be the same. Some things can't be undone." The threat was clear. If I insisted on being repaid, I would be permanently cast out from the family. It was their final attempt to control me through fear and obligation. In that moment, I realized how little they understood about what had already been broken. "You're right, Dad," I said quietly. "Some things can't be undone. Like the fact that you lied to me about having a heart condition to take my money. Or that you used that money to take everyone but me on vacation. Our relationship will never be the same, but that happened when you decided to betray me, not when I decided to stand up for myself." After hanging up, I sat in the growing darkness of my apartment, feeling a strange sense of calm. For the first time since discovering their betrayal, I felt certain that I was doing the right thing. The road ahead would be difficult and lonely, but it would be mine, free from manipulation and false obligations. But hey, amazing viewers, Before I continue with what happened next in this shocking family betrayal, I want to know, have you ever had to stand up to your own family like this? The moment where you realize your self-respect matters more than keeping the peace? It's such a difficult crossroads to face. While you're thinking about that, don't forget to hit that like button if you're enjoying this story, and subscribe to hear more real-life dramas with unexpected twists. Now, let's get back to what happened after I finally stood my ground. The day after my conversation with my father, I received a text message from an unexpected source, my cousin Rachel. Can we meet for coffee? There's something you should know. Rachel and I had never been particularly close. She was 2 years younger than me and had always been more aligned with Amanda's carefree attitude than my responsible nature. Still, she had been the unwitting messenger who had revealed my family's betrayal through her cruise photos. I agreed to meet her at a cafe near my office during lunch. When I arrived, Rachel was already there, fidgeting nervously with her coffee cup. She looked up with relief when she saw me. "Sarah, thank you for coming. I wasn't sure you would." I slid into the seat across from her. "What did you want to tell me?" She glanced around as if worried about being overheard. "First, I want you to know that Tyler and I had no idea about the money situation when we went on that cruise. Your parents told us it was a surprise they had been saving for, and that you couldn't come because of work commitments." I nodded stiffly. "So I've heard. But that's not all," Rachel continued, lowering her voice. "After you confronted them, your mom called my mom in a panic. I overheard their conversation. Sarah, this isn't the first time they've done something like this." My heart raced. "What do you mean?" Rachel pulled out her phone and showed me a series of text messages between her and Tyler from 3 days ago. "Tyler, did you know about the money thing with Sarah?" Rachel, "Not until after." "Did you?" Tyler, "No, but I found something weird in Dad's office yesterday. A notebook with everyone's names and numbers next to them. Sarah's had the biggest numbers by far. Looks like they've been taking money from her for years while telling her it was for different things." Rachel, "That's messed up. What are you going to do?" Tyler, "Don't know. They're my parents, but this is wrong. Sarah's always been good to me." I stared at the screen, a mixture of validation and fresh pain washing over me. "Tyler found their record book," I murmured. Rachel nodded. "He's conflicted, Sarah. He loves your parents, but he knows what they did was wrong. He's been asking questions, and apparently, your parents are getting nervous." "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. "Why get involved?" Rachel's expression turned serious. "Because it's not right. And because Tyler mentioned something else that worried me. Your parents are talking about selling some property or taking out a loan to pay you back quickly and make this go away. But they're also talking about, well, retaliating in other ways." "Retaliating? What does that mean?" She looked uncomfortable. "They've been telling family members that you've had mental health issues for years, that you're prone to exaggeration and paranoia. They're trying to discredit you before you can take this any further. And there was something about your job." A cold feeling spread through my chest. "My job? What about it?" "I don't know exactly. Something about your father still being friends with someone in your company's HR department?" Tyler didn't have details. The implications were staggering. Not content with stealing my money and manipulating my emotions, my parents were now actively trying to damage my reputation and possibly even my career. The depths of their betrayal seemed bottomless. "Thank you for telling me this," I said to Rachel, my mind already racing with the implications. "I appreciate you taking the risk." She reached across the table and squeezed my hand, a gesture of solidarity I hadn't expected. "Families shouldn't treat each other like this, Sarah. What they did to you is wrong, and what they're doing now is even worse. Tyler and I want to help, if you'll let us." That afternoon, I called my lawyer again and explained the new developments. He advised me to document everything and to alert my company's HR department about the potential interference from my father, without going into all the family details. "Frame it as a personal matter that might spill over inappropriately into your professional life," he suggested. "Get ahead of any potential issues." I followed his advice, scheduling a meeting with HR the very next day. I kept the explanation vague but clear. I was dealing with a difficult family situation, and there might be attempts to contact the company with misleading information about me. The HR manager, a woman named Denise, thanked me for my transparency and assured me they would handle any such contact appropriately. That evening, Tyler called me for the first time since our confrontation at our parents' house. "Sarah," he said, his voice unusually serious. "I owe you an apology. I had no idea about the money or how they've been treating you all these years." "It's not your fault, Tyler," I said, surprised by how much I meant it. "You didn't know. But I should have seen it. All those times you couldn't afford to join us for things, while I never seemed to have money problems despite making less than you. It never added up, but I never questioned it." His voice cracked slightly. "I found Dad's notebook, Sarah. It goes back years, every time they asked you for money, what excuse they used, how much they got. There are even notes about what approaches worked best with you. It's calculated. And sick." I closed my eyes, absorbing this final confirmation of what I had already begun to suspect, that the betrayal was not a one-time lapse, but a long-term strategy. "Would you be willing to take photos of that notebook?" I asked. "It could help with the legal case if it comes to that." There was only a slight hesitation before he agreed. "I'll do it tomorrow when they're out at their garden club meeting." "Rachel said she told you they've been saying things about you to the family." "Yes, she mentioned that." "It's worse than she knows," Tyler admitted. "They've been calling everyone, aunts, uncles, cousins, even some of your old friends they still have contact with. They're painting you as unstable and money-obsessed. They're terrified of what will happen if people believe your version of events instead of theirs. The systematic way they were trying to destroy my reputation was chilling. This went beyond a simple dispute over money. They were trying to erase me, to nullify my existence as a credible person." The realization was both frightening and strangely liberating. In their panic to discredit me, they were revealing just how right I had been to cut ties with them. "Tyler, why are you helping me?" I asked. "You're risking your relationship with Mom and Dad." He was quiet for a moment. "Because what they're doing is wrong, Sarah. And because you've always been there for me, even when I probably didn't deserve it. All those times you helped me with school projects or lent me money when I was short, you never held it over my head or made me feel bad about it. That's what family is supposed to be like." His words brought tears to my eyes, the first positive emotional reaction I'd had in weeks. "Thank you, Tyler. That means more than you know." The next day, true to his word, Tyler sent me photos of our father's notebook. The evidence was even more damning than I had imagined. Not only had my parents been systematically extracting money from me for years under false pretenses, but they had also been discussing how to manage me to ensure I remained a reliable source of funds. There were notes about playing to my sense of family duty, exploiting my desire for their approval, and manipulating my compassion with false emergencies. The final page contained their most recent scheme: Sarah Emergency Fund, medical scare for Cruz $. $5K plus possible if we emphasize seriousness, but not enough to make her insist on coming to apps. Seeing the calculated deception laid out so plainly was like a physical blow. But amid the pain was something unexpected, a growing sense of strength. With each revelation, the fog of self-doubt and guilt that had plagued me since the confrontation began to lift. I wasn't crazy or overreacting. If anything, I had underestimated the extent of their betrayal. With Tyler and Rachel now firmly in my corner, providing evidence and emotional support, I was no longer fighting this battle alone. And as difficult as the road ahead might be, I knew now that I wasn't just fighting for my money, I was fighting for my dignity and for the truth to be known. Armed with the damning evidence from my father's notebook, my lawyer advised me that we had a strong case for fraud, not just a simple failure to repay a loan. "They misrepresented the purpose of the money with clear intent to deceive you," he explained. "That's textbook fraud, and the documentation your brother provided proves premeditation." We filed the lawsuit in small claims court the following week, seeking the full $14,876 plus legal fees. The formal complaint laid out the pattern of deception, focusing specifically on the most recent $5,200 loan obtained under false pretenses for my father's non-existent medical condition. The response from my parents came swiftly and aggressively. Their lawyer, a family friend who had known me since childhood, sent a dismissive letter characterizing the whole situation as a sad misunderstanding between generous parents and an entitled daughter. They claimed that any money given to them over the years had been freely offered gifts with no expectation of repayment, and that the discussion of my father's health had been misinterpreted by me in my emotionally fragile state. The gaslighting was breathtaking in its audacity. But thanks to Tyler's evidence, their attempts to rewrite history held no power over me anymore. I knew the truth, and soon, so would a judge. As the court date approached, my parents made one last attempt at manipulation. My mother showed up unannounced at my apartment one evening, her eyes red from crying and her hands clutching a small box. "Sarah, please," she begged when I reluctantly let her in. "This has gone too far. We're your parents. How can you do this to us? To the family?" I stood my ground, crossing my arms. "What's in the box, Mom?" She opened it to reveal my grandmother's pearl necklace, a family heirloom I had always admired. I thought, maybe we could settle this between us. The pearls are worth at least $3,000. Take them, and we can put this whole unfortunate business behind us. The realization hit me like a truck. They were still trying to cheat me, offering me pearls worth $3,000 to settle a debt of nearly $15,000. Even now, in this last-ditch effort to avoid court, they couldn't bring themselves to treat me fairly. "Mom," I said quietly, "those pearls aren't yours to give. Grandma left them to me in her will. You told me they were lost years ago." The color drained from her face. Another lie exposed. "Get out," I whispered. "And leave the pearls. They're legally mine anyway." After she left, I sat holding the pearl necklace, a tangible symbol of the years of deception I had endured. The next day, I sent an email to my lawyer with this new information. He was as surprised as I was by their brazen attempt to settle a $15,000 debt with stolen property that already belonged to me. The court date arrived on a crisp autumn morning. As I walked into the courthouse with my lawyer, I spotted my parents on the opposite side of the hallway with their attorney. They looked smaller somehow, diminished. My father avoided my gaze entirely, while my mother stared with a mixture of hurt and anger that once would have sent me into a spiral of guilt. Now, I felt only resolve. To my surprise, Tyler was there too, sitting alone on a bench halfway between us. A physical representation of his position in this family drama. When he caught my eye, he gave me a slight nod of encouragement. Inside the courtroom, my lawyer presented our case methodically, showing the judge the transferred funds, the text messages about my father's non-existent medical condition, and, most damaging of all, the photos of my father's notebook detailing years of financial manipulation. When Tyler was called to testify about finding the notebook, my parents looked utterly betrayed. My mother gasped audibly when he confirmed the authenticity of the photos I had submitted as evidence. My father's face hardened into a mask of anger as his own son testified against him. Their attorney tried to argue that the notebook was taken without permission and therefore inadmissible, but the judge disagreed. The notebook was in plain sight in a common area of the home where the witness was a welcome guest, she noted. There's no expectation of privacy in those circumstances. When it was my parents' turn to present their defense, they continued to insist that any money I had given them over the years was a gift, not a loan. But their position crumbled when confronted with text messages where they had explicitly promised to repay the medical bills money. "Mr. Mitchell," the judge asked my father directly, "did you or did you not tell your daughter that you needed $5,200 for medical treatment related to a heart condition?" My father shifted uncomfortably. "It was a misunderstanding. I did have some health concerns." "That's not what I asked," the judge interrupted. "Did you tell your daughter you needed money specifically for medical bills?" "Yes, but—" "And did you use that money to fund a family vacation instead?" A long pause. "Yes. A vacation that your daughter was not invited to participate in." Another pause. "Yes." The judge's expression made it clear what she thought of this admission. By the time closing arguments were presented, the outcome seemed inevitable. The judge ruled entirely in my favor, ordering my parents to repay the full $14,876 plus court costs and attorney's fees. Additionally, She referred the case to the district attorney's office for possible criminal fraud charges, though she noted that as a first offense involving family members, prosecution was unlikely. What is most disturbing about this case, the judge said in her closing remarks, is not just the financial deception, but the calculated emotional manipulation involved. The court rarely sees such well-documented evidence of systematic exploitation of a family member's generosity and good faith. As we left the courtroom, Tyler approached me hesitantly. "Are you okay?" I nodded, feeling strangely empty despite the victory. "I'll be fine. What about you? They're going to blame you for this." He shrugged, a flash of the old carefree Tyler showing through. "Probably. But I can handle it. And Sarah, I'm sorry for all of it." I hugged him briefly, the first genuine moment of family connection I'd felt in months. "It wasn't your fault. But thank you for doing the right thing." My parents walked past us without a word, my father's arm around my mother's shoulders as she dabbed at her eyes with a tissue. The performance of victimhood continued, even now. I watched them go, feeling a strange mixture of vindication and grief for the family I had thought I had. 1 month after the court decision, I received a certified check for the full amount owed, along with a formal letter from my parents' attorney stating that this payment resolves all financial obligations between the parties. There was no apology, no acknowledgement of wrongdoing, just a cold, legal transaction closing the books on nearly 3 decades of family ties. I deposited the check and closed the bank account my parents had access to, opening a new one at a different bank. It was a small act of boundary setting, but it felt significant. Never again would anyone have the opportunity to exploit my trust in this way. The family continued to splinter in the aftermath of the court case. Amanda firmly sided with our parents, cutting me off completely and spreading further rumors about my mental instability and greed. Tyler maintained limited contact with both sides, trying unsuccessfully to broker some kind of reconciliation until he finally accepted that some bridges, once burned, cannot be rebuilt. Rachel and her brother became unexpected allies, often inviting me to gatherings that my parents and Amanda weren't attending. Slowly, a new support network began to form, one based on mutual respect rather than obligation or manipulation. 3 months after the court case, I received an email from a woman named Jessica who introduced herself as a former friend of Amanda's. "I hope you don't mind me contacting you," she wrote. "Amanda has been telling people a pretty wild story about you taking your parents to court over a misunderstanding, but some things didn't add up. I wanted to hear your side, if you're willing to share it." I hesitated, wary of being pulled back into the drama, but eventually agreed to meet Jessica for coffee. When we met, she explained that she had distanced herself from Amanda years ago because of her tendency to manipulate situations and people. When she started talking about you, it sounded like her usual pattern of making herself the victim while demonizing someone else. I wanted to know the truth. After hearing my story, backed up by the court documents, which were now public record, Jessica shared something that made the final pieces fall into place. "Amanda was always jealous of you, you know. She would complain that your parents favored you, that you were the perfect daughter they always compared her to. It drove her crazy that no matter how much she acted out, you kept trying to be the good daughter they wanted." The irony was almost painful. All those years I had felt like the outsider, the less loved child, while Amanda had apparently been harboring the exact opposite perception. Had our parents deliberately fostered this misunderstanding, playing us against each other to maintain control? It seemed likely, given everything else I had discovered about their manipulative tendencies. 6 months after the court case, I received my first promotion at work. A direct result of the improved performance that came with freeing myself from the constant emotional drain of my toxic family dynamics. I celebrated by taking myself on a solo trip to the Caribbean, the very vacation my family had excluded me from, but this time on my own terms, with my own money. As I sat on the beach watching the sunset, I reflected on how much had changed in less than a year. I had lost the family I thought I had, but in the process, I had found myself. The financial betrayal had been painful, but the emotional freedom that came from breaking free of their manipulation was worth far more than $15,000. My phone buzzed with a text from Tyler. Hope you're enjoying the beach. Proud of you, sis. Attached was a photo of him standing in front of a small apartment building. New place, the caption read. No more living under their roof or their rules. I smiled, feeling a genuine surge of pride for my younger brother who had found his own path to independence. He was the unexpected silver lining in this dark cloud, the family member who had chosen truth and integrity over blind loyalty and manipulation. A week after returning from my vacation, I received an unexpected letter in the mail, handwritten on my mother's distinctive stationery, but with a postmark from a neighboring state. Inside was a brief note. Sarah, I'm writing this from your Aunt Linda's house, where I've been staying since leaving your father last week. The court case forced me to see truths I've been avoiding for too long, not just about how he treated you, but about the kind of man your father is and the kind of wife and mother I've allowed myself to become. I'm not asking for forgiveness or reconciliation. Some things can't be undone. I just wanted you to know that you were right to stand up for yourself. It took courage I didn't know you had, courage I wish I'd found years ago. Take care of yourself. Mom. The letter shook me more than I expected. It wasn't an apology exactly, but it was an acknowledgement, the first real one I had received from anyone in my immediate family. I never responded to the letter, and my mother never contacted me again. Some bridges remain burned, and rightfully so. Today, a year after discovering the cruise photos that changed everything, I'm in a different place, literally and figuratively. I've moved to a new city for a better job opportunity, bought my first home with the money I've been able to save now that I'm not supporting my parents, and built a circle of friends who value me for who I am, not what I can give them. I still have the pearl necklace, the one true inheritance from my grandmother that my mother tried to use as a bargaining chip. I wear it sometimes as a reminder of where I came from and how far I've come. Each pearl represents a hard lesson learned about family, trust, and self-worth. The most important lesson was the hardest to accept. Sometimes, the family we're born into is not the family we deserve. Sometimes, real family is found in the people who stand by us when we stand up for ourselves, people like Tyler and Rachel who chose truth over comfort, and even new friends like Jessica who could see through the lies to the person beneath. As for my parents and Amanda, I hear occasional updates through the family grapevine. My father is struggling financially without my contributions to bail him out of his self-created problems. Amanda recently asked Tyler for a loan that sounds suspiciously similar to how my parents used to approach me. The cycle continues for those who haven't learned the lesson. But that's no longer my problem or my responsibility. I gave my parents $5,200 for my dad's bills, then found out they took everyone on a cruise but me. That betrayal forced me to see what had been happening all along and gave me the courage to break free. In the end, it wasn't just about the money, it was about recognizing my own worth and refusing to accept anything less than the respect I deserve. So what's your story? Have you ever had to stand up to family members who took advantage of your generosity? Or have you witnessed the kind of family betrayal that changes everything you thought you knew about the people closest to you? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button to help others find it too. And don't forget to subscribe for more real-life stories about family dynamics, personal growth, and the unexpected ways karma catches up with those who betray our trust. Thank you so much for listening to my family revenge story, and remember, sometimes the most important family lesson is learning when to walk away. Share this video if you know someone who needs to hear that message today.